FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Today's show is brought to you by Blue Sky Uranium Corporation. Blue Sky has first mover advantage in Argentina in the world's newest uranium and vanadium district. With an existing near-surface deposit that's open for expansion, Blue Sky also controls a massive district-scale land package with mineralization along a 145-kilometer-long trend. Blue Sky possesses tremendous exploration upside and is an excellent leverage play on rising uranium and vanadium prices. The company is run by a best-in-class management and technical team with proven exploration and development success in Argentina. Blue Sky Uranium trades under the ticker symbol BSK on the Toronto Venture Exchange and as BKUCF on the OTC. For more information and to stay on top of the latest news, go to blueskyuranium.com. That's blueskyuranium.com.
The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Welcome. You are listening to the Financial Survival Network. I'm Kerry Lutz. It's 3/1/19. We got through February, amazingly enough, intact. But for how much longer is the question? Well, hey, when it comes to anarchy and anarchists, we always go to our in-house anarchist, or I should say our anarchic consulting person.
Your outhouse anarchist.
Our outhouse. Right, our outhouse anarchist. Why didn't I think of that? I'm talking about Jeff Berwick. Hey, if you got questions for Jeff, anarchy, economy, gold, whatever, just email us, kl@kerrylutz.com. Well, haven't talked to you in a while. Jeff, man, welcome back.
Yeah, thanks, Kerry. Good to talk to you.
Hey, so you just got done with Anarchapulco. So how did that go?
Excellent. We doubled in size yet again. So we had about 1,200 people last year. We had over 2,000 this year. Wow. Still don't have the final numbers. It was quite chaotic, but over 2,000 for sure. And it was amazing. We had so many great speakers, Ron Paul and David Icke, and the list goes on and on. We had about 200 total speakers. We had about 5 stages this year, including a Cryptopolco stage, so just a crypto currency type stage. We also had a health and wellness stage. We had an advocacy stage. We had a free your family camp with over, I think, 50 families came talking about peaceful parenting and unschooling. So yeah, it was great.
Well, so I always wonder, how do you manage 2,000 anarchists under one roof? How do you get them to start something on time and finish and adhere to a schedule when everybody's kind of marching to the beat of your own drum?
Well, you're kind of right in one respect. It is very difficult to run an anarchist conference, but it's not for those reasons that you said. In general, a lot of people are pretty good at showing up on time and that sort of a thing. But when it comes to differences of opinion, people are very outspoken and things like that. But yeah, I just actually did an interview with the person, Matt Phillips, who's with the Free State Project, and he ran PorcFest for a while. And we were discussing how difficult it is to run anarchist events. But, at the same time, it's also amazing because so many people care about the event and so many people have their opinions on the event. And that's really what you want. You don't want to have an event that no one cares all that much about and no one's really going to say anything if they didn't like anything. So we've got a very engaged audience. And you were there, I believe, last year. So you saw it's very relaxed on the beach and all kinds of parties. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, I will definitely make it next year. I will make it a point to make it there. And so what was the highlight of the whole festivities?
Man, there was so many. For me personally, I enjoyed the concert. I'm a huge Immortal Technique fan, and he really rocked it. Him and his crew came in, and they took down the house. And we did it at the Palladium again, the one of the biggest discos in Acapulco, and a lot of great opening acts as well, including Elias Clay and Free Knots and Backwards were amazing. So for me, that was sort of the really enjoyable part for me. It was a real party at one of the top discos in Acapulco. But going to private dinners with people like David Icke and Ron Paul, and getting to sit down with people like that was pretty amazing as well. And I'm still going through. We actually have the videos up for sale for almost all the speeches at Anarchapulco and the TDV Summit, which was 2 days beforehand this year. So I'm actually just still going through and watching, and almost every speech was of the life-changing type variety. It's really quite amazing the amount of people. We had shamans coming. We had all kinds of amazing people. Even we did ayahuasca, we did DMT, peyote, and a lot of the shamans came up, I believe, from Colombia or somewhere from the Amazon, and they did it right on the beach. So a lot of really amazing things that you don't usually see at a lot of other conferences.
Yeah, well, you got to be a little careful of that stuff, but I guess the shamans know what they're doing. They've been doing it for thousands of years, after all. So what about the crypto corner? What's going on in the crypto space? It looks like it's all but been given up for dead.
Yeah, that's the outside view on it, which is excellent. And that, of course, as you know, Kerry, is someone who's been in the financial markets. That's when you want to be buying. And that's what I've been saying since about, I believe, December, January. I said, actually last year, about a year ago, when Bitcoin was at $20,000, I started saying it was time to take profits. And I did. And our analyst, Ed Bugos, actually said that he figured the bottom on Bitcoin would be $3,500. And that almost to this day has been the bottom. So we really picked it again. And we're basically saying now is the time to start accumulating that, like with any market, as you know, Kerry, when everyone thinks it's dead, when they think it's over, that's when you want to be buying. When it was a year ago and everyone was clamoring, I went to a North American Bitcoin conference in Miami, and there was 4,000 people. And I said that, this looks like the top. This is there was taxi drivers there all talking about they all want Lamborghinis and things like that. So that was the top. And I think we're pretty close to the bottom. We could go lower from here, but I don't think much lower. And I think it's definitely time to start accumulating.
Yeah, well, my guess when I wrote an article in mid-December of 2017, towards the end of December, saying dump it or at least sell half your Bitcoin. And my projection then was 3880, but it broke 3880. That would be exactly an 80% retracement of the peak of 19,400 to 19,700. Because it broke it so much, I kind of adjusted it downward to 2,000 or what would that be? 1950, roughly 1940. So it still could go down there. I mean, gold took a major hit today, $20 off. Hadn't seen it break down below resistance below that 1,300 support for a few weeks. So probably a temporary decline. But there's so many cryptos is the problem. And does the world need 5,000 different cryptocurrencies? It's gotten out of hand.
Absolutely not. And I hear that argument a lot from people, and they say, well, there's, unlimited amount of cryptos, so therefore there's no scarcity. Well, that's not true. You could start your own crypto, Kerry, and I've actually started my own a few times. I've started just like little coins just for fun. I never even told anyone about it, but anyone could start their own coin. That doesn't mean anything. What matters is the real cryptos that are important. They're actually doing things and actually have market share. Those are the ones that are important. And I've said for quite a while that really it's just the top 5, maybe top 10 cryptos that you see that really have any sort of, real future. There's obviously always going to be something that comes out of the blue that you don't expect, and that could happen. But it's really about the big ones, and it's basically Bitcoin Cash, both versions now. It's forked, and EOS I like, and I also like Monero. I like Ethereum quite a bit, and Dash is not bad, and that's basically it. And you brought up gold and precious metals, and I think I've been saying this for the last probably 6 months that there's never been a better time to be buying precious metals. I can't believe that they're still this low with everything that's going on in the world, with the massive amounts of debt, the massive amounts of money printing. That's a sure thing sort of thing to me is precious metals. And then the cryptos is a bit more on the speculative side. But we actually say that our Vigilante, we started with a 5% crypto allocation years ago. We first got into Bitcoin at $3, for example, in 2011. But we've moved that up now. Since the cryptos have come off so much this year, we've moved up to 20%. So we're saying have 20% of your assets in crypto, 50% or more in precious metals, and then the rest can be in things like real estate and other ways to diversify.
Yeah. Well, it makes a certain amount of sense there. I'm not convinced that we've seen the bottom in cryptos yet. I am convinced we've seen the bottom in metals. It'll probably, expected it to retrace and go down a bit. All the cycles are down right now, but a lot of it's cyclical. So what about what's going on in the world here when you started talking about debt and everything else? What's your latest assessment of the state of the world?
Well, we've been talking for years, and really nothing's changed except for it's just gotten worse and worse. It's truly unbelievable the system is held together this long. The stock market's still staying this high for this long. It's been 10 years now or more than 10 years since the 2008 financial crisis. And usually, as you know, I was talking about Shemitah and things like that. There's a 7-year cycle that things seem to follow. Mm-hmm. This time, it's gone on for about 10 years. It's pretty much the longest bull market we've ever seen. It's definitely the biggest amount of money printing we've ever seen in human history by all central banks across the world. And that's really all that's happening right now is they've just managed to keep it afloat. And so things like the stock market stay at highs, but they're devaluing the money so rapidly that a lot of people don't really fully realize that. And there's going to be a day of reckoning coming for sure. There has to be. There's no way this keeps going. And you look at the U.S. debt. When I first started the Dollar Vigilante, or actually before that in 2008, when Barack Drone Bomber became president of the U.S., the total U.S. debt was $9 trillion. We're now at $22 trillion and going up over $1 trillion per year. It's actually looking closer to $2 trillion per year. So it's it's more than doubled. It's almost tripled in the last 10 years, the U.S. debt. This is basically banana republic level sort of things. And as you've seen in Zimbabwe, Argentina, or any other place, when you start printing up that much money, you start going into that much debt so rapidly, there's going to be an endpoint. And on that endpoint, there's going to be massive collapse, massive change. Things like precious metals will go up dramatically. And a lot of cryptos, not all obviously, but a few of them definitely have the potential to go up dramatically. And even if there isn't a collapse, the cryptos could go up because there's massive use cases for these cryptos and they're not going away. There's a massive need for a currency that's outside of the control of governments and central banks, that you actually own your own money so you don't have to keep it in a bank. And all these banks are over leveraged. They're all on the verge of collapse. Things like not Lehman Brothers. That was the last one. Things like Deutsche Bank. It's on its final last legs here. So there's going to be bank collapses. There's going to be massive financial collapse. Could go into hyperinflation. And of course, what are some of the best things to own during those periods? And that's obviously precious metals. And now, thanks to the last 10 years since Bitcoin was created, we also have another alternative, and that's cryptos.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. So look, when we started talking, and this is like over 7 years ago, we thought that the Chinese were going to be a moderating force in the world's monetary system, that they were going to be the ones that were left standing. But they've been more profligate than everybody else, haven't they?
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever said China was going to save anything. I've been of the opinion that all fiat currencies will go to zero fairly soon, and I think we're still very on track for that. I think the worst ones at the moment are the euro, the Japanese yen, and the dollar of the main currencies. Of course, there's a lot of smaller countries that are even way worse than that. But China, as you pointed out, it's gone into massive amounts of debt, which is crazy. The banks is so massively leveraged. It's basically followed the same template as the U.S.
Yeah, and so those of you who might have thought that the Chinese were going to rescue the system, they're worse off than just about anybody, but it's not as apparent because less, I don't want to call it transparency, but less statistics, reliable statistics available, and less of a peek under the tent of what they're actually doing, which is far worse than anyone else. So nobody has the solution, I guess, is what I'm saying. None of these countries have a clue. So are we just going to blow up all the countries in the world are going to blow up, and then it'll be every man for himself, and your anarchic vision is going to come to pass?
That'd be great. We'll see what happens. Obviously, I don't want to see, horrible things happen to people. I don't want to see big depressions. I don't want to see big crashes. But that's what's all caused by central banks. That's what central banks do, and that's what a lot of people still don't understand.
The purpose.
And as you pointed out, China has a central bank, and they're doing all the same things that the Federal Reserve's doing now. And these things will have to come to an end. Luckily, I think it's so lucky that cryptos came into existence because, as you know, Carrie, if you basically have gold and silver as your main way to get around this collapse, it's still difficult because you can't buy an iPhone from China with gold and silver very easily. But thanks to cryptos now, there's actually ways to transfer your precious metals or the value of the precious metals around quite easily. And then you also have cryptos aside from gold-backed cryptos, which make transferring and transacting incredibly easy as long as we have power and the internet. And those are the two key things. So if those two things stay on during this collapse, then cryptos will probably be the sort of the savior of most people. And you see that in places like Argentina and Venezuela, for example. Dash currency has become very widely used in Venezuela because the bolivar, we call the strong bolivar now, which is the second time they've had a hyperinflation in the last 10 years, is basically worthless. So people have started to use cryptocurrency. So for the first time, really, we actually have the opportunity to use a currency that's easy to use as long as the internet stays on and the power stays on, that even if the central banks all go away, if all fiat currencies go away, we have another option. And that's incredibly exciting and incredibly hopeful. If it wasn't for that, I don't know how I'd be feeling about this upcoming collapse. I'd be more of the kind of person who says, stock up food, go live in the woods, wait till everything sort of sorts itself out. But with cryptos, I think we have an opportunity. And the more people that actually get into them now and start using them, the less difficult this transition of these collapses will be.
Yeah, so you really think that cryptos are the cure for what ails us, huh?
It gives us an option because, as I pointed out, gold and silver, you could have a bunch of gold and silver stacked up and buried in your backyard. But when the banks close and when the fiat currencies go to zero, it's really difficult to actually transact with those currencies outside of your local area. So we actually have an opportunity now where we can actually transact worldwide very easily. Actually, it's far better than the current banking system. And so it gives people an option. So it's really the first time we've had that option. Like, for example, when Zimbabwe went into its hyperinflation a while ago, a lot of people started using the South African rand. They started using US dollars, things like that, because those were other things that they could use. But when all the fiat currencies collapse, there's not going to be any other fiat currency to run to. So it's I think, a very great thing that we have cryptocurrencies now. So people will have an opportunity to get a currency in one way or another through working for it or trading for it or whatever it is that they can actually use. Because, of course, without a currency, it's very difficult to have a real economy. Without a currency, you go into a barter system, and that's very difficult. If you're a farmer who has chickens that make eggs and you want to get a new car, you have to find a guy who makes a car who wants some eggs. It gets not very easy to transact. So it is important to have a currency, and cryptos are really something that, as long as the power and the internet stays on, are an excellent way for us all to get outside of the system.
Which could be a big if. I mean, you don't know. As much as you plan, you never know how the thing is going to shake out, right? You really don't. So all you're doing is trying to hedge.
That a lot of people bring up, they say, every time I do a cryptocurrency video on YouTube, someone will go, yeah, well, what's your Bitcoin going to be worth if the power gets shut off? And they're totally right. But I'll say, if the power gets shut off and the internet gets shut off, you're not even going to be thinking about cryptocurrencies. You're going to be trying to survive, because none of us are used to a world without the power and the internet nowadays. And it will be quite difficult for a period of time. It'll be a bit of a Mad Max scenario if that actually happens. But we'll see what happens. I don't think that's going to get that bad. Hopefully it doesn't get that bad, but yes, it could get that bad. And that's why we definitely recommend having precious metals and being ready for a total collapse.
Yeah, so we don't know what's going to happen. We can only speculate, and that's the problem. The future is always uncertain. So anything else you see out there people should be doing, or you're doing, or seeing other people do, that will help get you through this?
Well, a lot of it's sort of personal things. For example, I didn't really worry a lot, but a lot of people who followed me would worry, and they'd worry so much about the collapse. And there's no point in worrying. And we don't know what's going to happen. And just worrying about it is a complete and total waste of time. You're assuming something's going to happen, and you're actually making yourself feel that pain, that fear right now when you don't have to. And what I've also realized is that money and assets and all those sort of things, those are very, very secondary to happiness. So if you are out there and you're not very happy, and you don't have a family that you love or loves you, and you don't have many friends, or you're just depressed or whatever it is, fix that first. Money does not buy happiness. Basically, when it comes to things like having assets and money, those are great to have, and it gives you a lot of freedom and a lot of opportunity. But I think a lot of people worry too much about it. I think really, get yourself healthy as well. There's so many people that are just, really badly overweight or have a lot of health issues. Fix those things. Those are really important. The secondary, very secondary, is things like money and finances.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. But the old saying, money can't buy happiness, but it'll do till the real thing comes along.
It can also sidetrack it. I know a lot of rich kids that, they're born and their parents give them $1 billion, and they're the most unhappiest people I've ever met, because they never had to build themselves. They never had to work for anything. So in many ways, money, if you haven't actually really worked on yourself, figured out your own psychological problems, which everyone has, your own emotional issues, your health, if you have money, it can actually be a bad thing, because it actually will make it so you don't have to face those problems right away. And as you don't face those problems, they just get worse and worse. So it's a bit of a funny thing, money and things like that. I think for the most part, there's a rap song, more money, more problems. And I've actually found that too. The more money I seem to have, the more problems I seem to have. So, that'd be my one thing to say to people is don't get too worried about all this stuff. Really, life is not about money. It's about, the experience, the journey, your own health. Of course, if you don't have your own health, you have nothing. If you haven't figured out your psychological and emotional issues, you're going to continue to have problems. Work on those. Love your family. Love your friends. Eat good food. Try to grow your own food. Things like that. It's very healthy to do. Get outside of the medical system. It's mostly there to kill you. So many people are on all these pharmaceuticals now, and it's really just killing them. And then secondarily, once you got all that fixed, if you want to make money and have assets and things like that, that's great. But as I said, I think it's very secondary. Yeah,
agreed. Definitely agree with you there. There are things that are more important than money, health for sure, your family, all those things come ahead of money. But money does give you a certain amount of freedom, but you have to be ready to kind of accept it. So anyway, what's going on Dollar Vigilante these days?
Basically the same as we've been doing since 2010. So we just finished the Dollar Vigilante Summit, which is 2 full days before Anarchapulco, which was 4 days. So it was 6 full days for me of conferences in Acapulco. You can get all those videos. I don't know the exact link, but if you search for Dollar Vigilante Summit videos on demand or Anarchapulco videos on demand, you can watch all those videos. We had so many great speakers, Carrie. It's too bad you didn't come down. Yeah. We had G. Edward Griffin, Jeffrey Tucker. I could just go on and on about so many amazing people that spoke at the event, and it was very enlightening. And a lot of the talks too, it's kind of funny because it's a financial event, but a lot of us were talking about the same things I've just been saying. It's a lot more important to focus on other things, but at the same time, as you pointed out, money gives you freedom, so definitely something to be working on. That's just sort of another sort of angle to life. And in fact, when you have assets, when you have money, if you've earned them in the right way, you've earned them because you've actually offered people a lot of value. So it's actually a way of getting the energy back. And that's why it's called currencies, because it's like a current, like a voltage. You're actually getting your energy back from the work and the help you've done for other people. So in that way, it's great. And so for a lot of people out there who think, money is the root of all evil. First of all, that's not even what it says in the Bible. It says the love of money is the root of all evil. So therefore greed. And of course, that can be very bad if you get into this sort of greed mindset. But money's great to have. I know it's weird for me to be pointing it out because I am supposed to be this financial guy, but really the other stuff's way more important. But if you've got those things fixed and you want to make have assets and make money, definitely you have to be looking at precious metals and cryptocurrencies. It's going to be one of the only assets to really survive this coming collapse.
Yeah, well, you might very well be correct. Anyway, so we find you over at dollarvigilante.com. And go check out the site. There's a link in the show notes. And any questions, just email us, kl@kerrylutz.com. Twitter feed's @KerryLutz. Facebook is Financial Survival Network. Jeff, it's always good catching up with you. We'll talk to you again real soon.
You too. Thank you, Gary.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.